The last thing my father said to me before I walked out of his life forever wasn't, "I love you," or even "goodbye." It was this: "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering." He said it in front of everyone, at a table where I'd paid for every single plate. You know what's wild? My father genuinely believed he was right. That's how deep the entitlement runs in families like this. They'll take everything you have and still convince themselves you're the problem. If you've ever been the responsible one who everyone forgets until they need something, hit that like button. Let me know I'm not crazy. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story gets so much worse, and then so much better. Drop a comment. Have you ever been treated like an ATM by your own family? Where are you watching from? My name is Amber Lorenzo. I'm 40 years old, and until 8 months ago, I thought I understood what family meant. Not the Hallmark version with matching sweaters and unconditional love, but the real kind. The messy kind you build your life around, even if it means carrying more than your share of the weight. I've always been the steady one, the responsible daughter, the one who remembered birthdays, showed up early to help set up, and stayed late to clean up the mess nobody else even noticed was there. I was the one who sent care packages, made the phone calls, picked up the slack when slack was all there was. But I didn't grow up thinking I'd be the financial backbone of a family that constantly made me feel like I was disposable. That part happens slowly, almost quietly, like rot under the floorboards you don't see until it all caves in. Growing up, I was the middle child, the one squeezed between Theo, my charming older brother who could talk his way into and out of anything, and Vivienne, my baby sister whose tears were currency and whose tantrums were treated like performance art. Theo was the golden boy, Vivienne was the princess, and me, I was the one who got good grades and was told I wasn't living up to my potential. I didn't mind, really. I kept my head down, earned a scholarship, moved out at 22, and spent the next decade building my corporate consulting firm from absolutely nothing. There were years, brutal, lonely years, when I survived on instant noodles and ambition, when I worked 80-hour weeks and got ghosted by every investor I pitched to. The silence from my family during those years was deafening. But when the money came in, when the firm finally took off and the press releases went out and the corner office became mine, suddenly I was family again. Funny how that works. It started innocuously enough. My dad called, voice warm in a way I hadn't heard since childhood, asking if I could help out with Theo's latest business venture, just $50,000 to get him back on track. "He'll pay you back, Amber. You know how Theo is." I knew exactly how Theo was, but I said yes anyway. Then came Vivienne's credit card debt. "Just this once, sis. I got in over my head." It was never once. Then Mom's elective surgeries, Dad's luxury sedan, the kitchen remodel Mom had been dreaming about since 1987, the family vacation to the Maldives where I wasn't invited, but was expected to fund. At first I told myself it was fine. I was grateful I could help. I convinced myself I was building something, a legacy maybe, a safety net, the kind of family foundation I never had growing up. I figured one day they'd look back and say, "Amber made all of this possible." But something about the way they took it, like it was owed, like I wasn't doing anything special, like my money was just an extension of their entitlement, started eating at me. Nobody ever said thank you. Not really. Just texts like, "You're the best," followed immediately by another request, just my father's occasional grunt of acknowledgement, just my mother's soft, distracted smile before asking, "While you're handling that, could you also—" I became a ghost in my own family story, present but unseen, useful but unappreciated, a checkbook with a heartbeat. And the worst part is that I let it happen. I stayed silent. I kept giving because somewhere deep down, I still believed that if I just gave enough, proved myself enough, they'd finally see me the way I'd always needed them to. What I didn't know was that it would take one sentence One brutal public accusation at a dinner I paid for to finally shatter that illusion. And when it shattered, I didn't just walk away. I took everything back. I used to think being forgotten was the worst thing a family could do to you. Turns out, being remembered only when they need something is infinitely worse. My childhood was a masterclass in invisibility. Theo got the trophies, literally and figuratively. Varsity everything, homecoming king, the kind of kid teachers remembered decades later with fond smiles. Vivienne got the attention, dramatic, beautiful, the kind of child who could weaponize tears before she could read. And me? I got Amber's doing fine and a pat on the head if I was lucky. I learned early that achievement didn't earn love in my family. It earned a shrug. Dean's List? That's nice, sweetie. Full scholarship? We always knew you were smart. Built a consulting firm from scratch while working 3 jobs? Silence. Complete, echoing silence. Until the firm took off. Year 7 was when everything changed. Not my relationship with my family, just their interest in maintaining one. I landed a Fortune 500 contract, and suddenly my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Not with congratulations, with opportunities. For them. Theo called first, voice bright with the enthusiasm usually reserved for pyramid schemes. His third startup, some app that promised to revolutionize grocery shopping, but mostly revolutionize burning investor capital, was hemorrhaging cash. Just 50,000, Amber. Bridge financing until the next funding round. I wired it the next day. Told myself it was an investment in his dream. 6 months later, the app folded, the 50,000 evaporated. Theo called again. 80 this time. I learned from my mistakes. This one's different. It wasn't different. It never was. By startup number 5, I'd given him $120,000. He'd given me exactly $0 back, and 1 birthday card he'd clearly asked his girlfriend to sign. Vivienne's requests came wrapped in crisis and tears. Her credit cards, maxed to $35,000 on designer bags and weekend trips to Napa, weren't her fault, obviously. The interest rates are predatory, Amber. I didn't know they'd compound like that. She knew. She just didn't care. Because she'd learned something important. Amber always says yes. Then came the parental pipeline. Mom's facelift, $28,000, because she deserved to feel beautiful. Dad's Tesla, $85,000, because his old car was embarrassing at the country club. The kitchen remodel, $67,000, that turned into a full first-floor renovation because once the contractors were there, why not? The medical procedures that insurance would have covered if Dad hadn't opted out of supplemental coverage to save $200 a month. Procedures that cost me $94,000 total. I kept a spreadsheet. Not out of resentment, at least that's what I told myself, but out of necessity. My accountant needed documentation for taxes. Turned out, family gifts over $15,000 required reporting. The number at the bottom grew like a tumor. 50,000, then 200,000, then 400,000. By year 15, I'd given them over $600,000. They'd given me 3 birthday calls I had to remind them about, 1 Thanksgiving invitation where I was asked to bring wine and write a check for the caterer, and 0 acknowledgments that any of this was remotely extraordinary. I started noticing the pattern around year 12. The calls only came when they needed something. The texts only appeared when payments were due. I wasn't invited to Vivienne's engagement party, but I was expected to fund it. I wasn't told about Theo's wedding until 2 weeks before, but my name was on the vendor invoices. I was family when it was convenient. I was forgotten when it wasn't. And the cruelest part, I kept hoping it would change, kept thinking that maybe the next wire transfer would be the one that finally earned me a seat at the table instead of just the bill. It never was. I wasn't building a legacy. I was renting a relationship that was never really mine to begin with. My father's 70th birthday dinner cost $8,400. I know because I paid for every cent of it. The restaurant was his choice. One of those places where the menu doesn't list prices and the sommelier speaks in hushed tones about terroir and notes of oak. I'd arranged everything. The private dining room, the 5-course tasting menu, the wine pairings, the custom cake that said 70 years of wisdom in gold leaf that probably cost more than most people's weekly groceries. I arrived early, set up the gift table, made sure his favorite scotch was ready, smiled when everyone filtered in. Theo with his new fiancée, Vivienne with her photographer boyfriend who immediately started shooting candid content for her Instagram. My mother in the dress I'd bought her last Christmas that she'd never acknowledged receiving. Nobody said thank you. Nobody asked how I was. Vivienne air-kissed near my cheek and immediately started complaining about her boutique's rent increase. Theo asked if I'd looked at his latest pitch deck. Just give it a read when you have time. I think this one's really gonna pop. They never popped. Dinner was fine. Expensive and fine. Theo gave a toast halfway through the entrees. Glass raised, voice warm with practiced charm. To Dad, the man who taught us what family means. Thank you to everyone here for making this night special. To family. Everyone. Not me specifically, just everyone. I smiled, drank my wine. Felt something small and cold settle in my chest. Then my father stood. He was 3 glasses deep into a Bordeaux I'd selected, his face flushed, his voice carrying that particular edge of a man who thinks he's about to say something profound. "I want to say something," he announced, and the table went quiet. "I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately, about what we leave behind, about what actually matters." He looked around the table. His eyes passed over me like I was part of the furniture. "And I've realized that family isn't about what you're given. It's about what you give. It's about showing up, being present, not just throwing money at problems and calling it love." My heart started pounding. Surely he wasn't. "Amber." He turned to me, and for one delusional second, I thought this was it, the acknowledgement, the thank you, the moment I'd been waiting 15 years for. "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering. If you had any real pride, any real understanding of what family means, you'd stop acting like we owe you something and just show up for once." The table went silent. Not the good kind of silent. The awful kind, where everyone's holding their breath and looking at their plates. I sat there, wine glass frozen halfway to my mouth, waiting for someone, anyone, to say something, to defend me, to correct him, to even look confused about an accusation so breathtakingly, objectively untrue. No one did. My mother looked uncomfortable. Theo looked down. Vivienne was typing on her phone under the table. They truly didn't see me. Or worse, they saw exactly what they wanted to see, a convenient resource that had finally started asking inconvenient questions. I set my wine glass down carefully, stood up, smiled that professional smile I'd perfected in hostile boardrooms. "Excuse me. I need to take a call." I walked out, grabbed my coat from the hostess stand, got in my car. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't call anyone to process what had just happened. I drove home in absolute silence. The kind of quiet that feels like the world ending, or maybe just beginning. By midnight, I'd canceled every automatic payment, every standing transfer, every scheduled wire. 15 years of financial life support disconnected in 23 clicks. I booked a one-way flight to Barcelona, departing in 9 hours. Then I called my mother's voicemail. I knew she wouldn't answer this late, and left 4 words. I need space. Goodbye. I waited for someone to call, to text, to ask if I was okay. 30 days of silence. Not one of them checked if I was alive. They only checked when the money stopped. Barcelona in October is golden and perfect, and exactly what I needed. I found a small cafe in the Gothic Quarter with tables that spilled onto cobblestone streets, ordered coffee that actually tasted like something, and watched strangers live lives that had nothing to do with me. For 30 days, my phone stayed blessedly silent. Then Vivienne's rent bounced. The call came at 3 a.m. Barcelona time, which meant Vivienne had discovered the problem at 6 p.m. her time and waited exactly 0 seconds before dialing. I was half asleep when my phone exploded with sound, vibrating so violently it nearly fell off the nightstand. I answered without thinking, muscle memory from 15 years of emergency calls. "Are you kidding me right now?" Vivienne's voice was shrill, panicked, furious. No hello, no are you okay, just rage. "My rent just bounced, Amber. Bounced! Do you have any idea how humiliating that is? My landlord called me, and said the payment failed, and now I'm getting hit with late fees, and he's threatening eviction, and how could you do this to me?" I sat up in the dark, Barcelona silent and beautiful outside my window, and felt something click into place. "I didn't do this to you, Vivienne." "Yes, you did. The payment is supposed to be automatic. You promised you'd—" "I didn't promise anything. You asked. I said yes. For 3 years. And now I'm saying no." "You can't just— I'm gonna lose my apartment. Is that what you want? You want me homeless?" "I want you to pay your own rent." She made a sound like I'd physically struck her. "Oh my God, you're really doing this? You're really punishing me because Dad hurt your feelings at dinner? This is so pathetic, Amber, so incredibly—" I hung up. My hands were shaking, not with guilt, but with something lighter. Something that felt suspiciously like relief. I turned my phone off, went back to sleep, slept better than I had in years. When I turned it back on the next morning, there were 43 missed calls. The voicemails were a greatest hits compilation of entitlement and denial. My mother, voice tight and clipped. "Amber, this is childish. Your father didn't mean what he said. He'd had too much wine and you know how he gets. But this little tantrum you're throwing is affecting your sister's housing. Fix Vivienne's rent today." Not, "Are you safe?" Not, "Where are you?" Just, "Fix it." Theo, trying for reasonable and landing somewhere near condescending. "Hey sis, look, I get you're upset, but you're kind of blowing this out of proportion. Dad didn't mean it the way it sounded. You're being really sensitive about this. Can you just call Mom back and maybe handle Viv's rent situation? She's freaking out." My father's message was the shortest and somehow the worst. "You're being selfish and dramatic. Family doesn't abandon family. Call me." I sat at that cafe in Barcelona, October sun warming my face, watching a street musician play guitar for euros, and scrolled through 43 missed calls that all said the same thing. Come back. Send money. Stop being difficult. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one of them apologized. Not one of them even acknowledged that maybe, possibly, accusing someone of taking while they're literally funding your entire existence might be worth a conversation. I ordered another coffee, pulled out my laptop, opened my email, and typed a single response to my mother's message. "I'm taking the space I said I needed. Do not contact me again." Then I archived everything, silenced their numbers, and stared out at the Mediterranean, impossibly blue, indifferent to my family drama, beautiful in its complete ambivalence. The realization settled over me like sunlight. They didn't love me. They needed me. And there's a difference. A huge, uncrossable difference. Love asks how you're doing. Need asks what you can do. Love shows up. Need shows up when the payment bounces. I'd spent 15 years confusing the two. 15 years believing that if I just gave enough, needed them less, proved myself more, they'd finally see me as something other than a solution to their problems. But they'd seen me clearly all along. They'd just never liked what I actually was. A person. With limits. With needs. With the audacity to want something besides the privilege of paying their bills. I finished my coffee, ordered another, watched Barcelona move around me. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't rushing to fix anything. And it felt like freedom. Nathaniel Adams was the kind of attorney who didn't waste words or sympathy. I'd hired him 3 years earlier for a contract dispute, and I'd kept him on retainer ever since. Not because I expected to need him, but because success means being prepared. I forwarded him my mother's email from a quiet corner of a Barcelona wine bar. Subject line, "Need your professional opinion." He called 6 hours later. It was 4 a.m. his time. "Amber, I've reviewed the documents you sent. Do you have comprehensive records of these transactions?" Every single one. 15 years of bank statements, wire confirmations, email requests, text messages. Silence. Then, how much total? Over 600,000. More silence. Jesus. And formal repayment agreements? None. They're family. That's... He paused, choosing his words carefully. That's unfortunate, but workable. Can you meet this week? I'm in Barcelona. Of course you are. I could hear him smiling. Video call tomorrow, 9 a.m. your time. Bring coffee. This is going to take a while. The call lasted 3 hours. Nathaniel was methodical, clinical, utterly without judgment. He pulled up property records while I watched, his screen shared between us like we were performing surgery. The beachfront condo in Santa Barbara. Sole owner, Amber Lorenzo. Purchased 7 years ago. Current market value, approximately $1.2 million. I bought it for the family, I said quietly. Legally, you bought it for yourself. The deed is exclusively in your name. Your family has been using your property. That's generous. It's also reversible. I want to sell it. Then we sell it. No hesitation, no moral lecture, just I'll have the paperwork ready by Friday. Then he pulled up my parents' home. The estate. Your parents are listed as owners, but there's something interesting here. 5 years ago, there was a substantial renovation, $200,000. Do you have records of that transaction? I wired the money. The memo said, loan for renovations. Nathaniel leaned forward. Did they sign a promissory note? No, but I have the wire transfer. And about 40 emails where they promised to pay me back eventually. That's a loan. An undocumented, legally messy loan, but a loan. Which means I can file a lien. And if they can't pay, which I'm guessing they can't, foreclosure. I finished. Foreclosure. He confirmed. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about my father's voice. All you do is take. I thought about 30 days of silence. I thought about 15 years of being invisible. I'm sure. Good. Give me 2 weeks. I flew to Kyoto the next day. Needed space, needed distance, needed to remember who I was when I wasn't fixing everyone else's crises. I walked through temples where people had been seeking peace for centuries. I sat in gardens designed to quiet the mind. I wrote in a journal I'd bought at the airport. filling pages with thoughts I'd been too busy to think for years. Who am I when I'm not useful? What do I want that has nothing to do with them? When did I stop mattering in my own life? The answers came slowly, but they came. Then I checked Instagram, a moment of weakness, curiosity, self-torture, and found Vivienne's crowdfunding campaign. The photo was perfectly composed. Vivienne looking vulnerable and brave, eyes slightly red like she'd been crying. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulation. I never thought I'd have to do this, but my sister cut our family off without warning during a crisis. She has abandoned us financially and emotionally, and now I'm facing eviction. My parents are at risk of losing their home. If you can spare anything, it would mean the world. Family should mean something. Hashtag family crisis. Help. Abandoned. She'd raised $3,400 in 2 days. I screenshotted the page. Then I opened my banking app and screenshot every transfer, every wire, every payment, meticulously organized by date, recipient, and amount. 15 years, $614,000, every dollar accounted for. I didn't post it immediately. I saved it, prepared it. Let it sit like evidence in a trial I hadn't decided to have yet. But I would. Because they'd chosen the narrative. Abandoned victim versus heartless villain. And I had receipts. Every single one. The foreclosure auction was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. I flew back the night before, rented a car, and drove past the house at dawn just to see it one more time before it stopped being theirs. It looked smaller than I remembered. Sad, even. The garden my mother had obsessed over was overgrown. The paint I'd paid to refresh 3 years ago was already peeling. It looked like what it was, a house nobody could afford to maintain once the person maintaining it disappeared. I arrived at 9:15. The auction was being held on site, and I wanted to walk through one last time before the vultures descended. The front door was unlocked. Bank's orders. I stepped inside, and the silence was absolute. They'd already moved most of their things out, left only the furniture too large or too worthless to take. The house felt like a crime scene. Or maybe a memorial. I walked through the kitchen I'd renovated, ran my hand over the marble countertops I'd picked out while my mother complained they weren't exactly the right shade of white, stared at the professional-grade appliances that had been absolutely essential and were now coated in dust. The living room still had the sectional I'd bought. $8,000, custom fabric, purchased because my father said the old couch made him look poor when colleagues visited. The dining table where I'd been called a taker, the walls I'd helped paint, the floors I'd helped refinish. 15 years of invisible labor. And I felt like a ghost haunting my own generosity. I heard the cars pulling up at 9:50. Multiple engines, doors slamming, voices rising in pitch and panic. I walked outside. My father saw me first. His face went from confused to red to something beyond rage. Apoplectic, biblical. You! He pointed like I was a demon he could exorcise through sheer volume. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Destroying your own family? I didn't destroy anything, I said quietly. I just stopped building it alone. My mother was crying, real tears this time, not the performative kind. Amber, please, there's still time. You can stop this. We can fix this. Fix it how, Mom? By asking me for more money you'll never pay back? Theo stepped forward, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. Amber, come on, this is insane. We're family. You can't just... Can't what? Set boundaries? Expect basic respect? Stop funding your lifestyle? Vivienne was filming on her phone, because of course she was. Everyone needs to see this. My own sister forcing our parents out of their home. Their home? I turned to her, and something in my voice made her lower the phone. I paid for the renovations. $200,000. The kitchen, the bathrooms, the roof, the HVAC system, all of it. And when I asked for repayment, you know what Dad said? He said asking for money back from family was classless. We were going to pay you back, my father started. When? It's been 5 years. You've had time. You've had means. You went to Cabo twice. Mom got another facelift. Theo bought a boat. That's different. It's not different. My voice cracked, not with tears, but with something sharper. I gave you everything. $50,000 for Theo's first disaster, $80,000 for the second, $120,000 for the third, $35,000 for Vivienne's credit cards twice, $200,000 for this house, the cars, the surgeries, the vacations I wasn't invited to, but was expected to fund. I gave you 15 years and $614,000, and you gave me a single sentence. The driveway went quiet. You told me I take, that I've never given you anything worth remembering. And you know what? That sentence set me free because I finally understood. You don't see me. You never did. You see a resource, a solution, an ATM with a heartbeat. We're still your family, my mother whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but distance. No, you were a system, and I'm done being the engine that keeps it running. The auctioneer's voice cut through. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning. I walked to my car, didn't look back, heard my father shouting, heard Vivienne crying, heard Theo calling my name. The gavel fell at 10:47 a.m. The house sold for $680,000. I was already gone. The calls stopped around week 8. Not all at once. They tapered off like a fever breaking. Desperate at first, then angry, then silent. I didn't answer any of them. My family moved into a rental on the other side of town. Something small, practical, within their actual means. I know because Vivienne posted about it, of course. A photo of a modest living room with the caption, "Starting over after betrayal. Sometimes the people you love the most hurt you the worst, but we're stronger together. Broken heart. Hashtag family first. Hashtag resilience." I didn't comment, didn't react, just archived the notification and kept scrolling. I'd relocated to a coastal town in Oregon, one of those places where nobody asks what you do or where you're from, where the biggest daily drama is whether the surf is good. I found a modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the ocean, all clean lines and empty space that felt like possibility instead of loneliness. I started a new consulting practice, smaller, more selective. I only took clients whose missions I actually believed in, nonprofits, sustainable businesses, people trying to build something meaningful instead of just profitable. Turned out, when you're not hemorrhaging money to fund other people's failures, you can afford to be principled. I found an old journal while unpacking, something from my mid-20s, buried in a box I hadn't opened in years. The pages were filled with dreams I'd forgotten I had, learning Italian, taking a pottery class, hiking the Camino de Santiago, writing something that wasn't a business proposal. None of it involved saving anyone. I started dreaming again. Small dreams at first. Signed up for a cooking class, bought a surfboard I had no idea how to use, planted herbs on my balcony. Then bigger ones. Booked a month in Florence for the spring, Started writing essays about finance and family and the invisible labor women are expected to perform without complaint. The bitterness faded slowly, like a stain lifting. I stopped rehearsing arguments in my head, stopped imagining the apology they'd never give, stopped waiting for them to understand. Because here's what I finally realized. They weren't villains. They were just people who learned I'd always say yes. And I was the one who taught them. I'd shown them for 15 years that my boundaries were negotiable, that my needs were optional, that their emergencies would always trump my peace. And they believed me. Vivienne's email arrived on a Wednesday in March. Subject line, I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long moment. Coffee growing cold in my hand, ocean rolling endlessly outside my window. I opened it. It was long, tearful, full of therapy speak about recognizing patterns and unpacking trauma and finally understanding the harm. She said she'd been in counseling, that her therapist had helped her see how much she'd taken me for granted, that she hoped someday I could forgive her. She didn't mention the money, didn't acknowledge the specifics, just offered the kind of vague, therapeutic apology that absolved without accounting. I read it once. Felt something flicker. Not forgiveness, not anger, just distance. The way you feel about a stranger story. Sad, but ultimately not yours to carry. I archived it. Not out of cruelty, not even out of righteousness, just out of disinterest. Her apology didn't change anything, didn't undo 15 years, didn't erase the words my father said, or the 30 days of silence, or the moment I realized I'd been funding my own erasure. And I didn't need it to be free. I had already freed myself. That's the thing they don't tell you about walking away from toxic family. You don't need their permission. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their apology to make it real. You just need to leave. And keep leaving. Every day. Every choice. Every boundary. Now, I stand on my balcony most mornings, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the Pacific. The silence used to terrify me, that absence of crisis, of emergency, of being desperately needed. But somewhere between Barcelona and the courthouse and this balcony with its impossible views, I learned the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't see you. Solitude is being alone and finally visible to yourself. I'm not lonely anymore. I'm just free. Free to dream small dreams about pottery classes and surfing lessons. Free to say no without justification. Free to spend my money on experiences instead of other people's emergencies. Free to be enough, just as I am, without proving it with wire transfers. The family I mourned never existed. It was a transaction I mistook for love. And now I'm building something different. Something smaller, simpler, mine. A life that fits me. Not them, just me. And that's enough. My father called me a taker while sitting at a table I paid for. That sentence cost him a house. If this story hit differently, if you've ever had to choose between family and self-respect, smash that like button. Subscribe and turn notifications on because there are more stories like mine, more people who chose freedom over obligation, and they all deserve to be heard. Comment below. What would you have done? Have you ever walked away from toxic family? Where are you watching from? You don't owe anyone your destruction, not even family. especially not family.